The question of if life is eternal, is death eternal, misses an important aspect of life, which is beyond these physical bodies. And if there's no consciousness, if there's no life to perceive time, then time doesn't exist, because only what can be perceived can exist. If this whole universe had no consciousness in it, it would not exist to anybody, and so there would be no existence. If we look deeply into the nature of consciousness, what we can see is a changeless, formless, conscious energy that is beyond the physical confines of life or death. Only briefly does it inhabit a physical form, but consciousness doesn't live or die. And eternity exists because this moment exists. And this moment never changes either. It doesn't pass through time. It is all time. And so the key to discovering that eternal nature is to turn our attention away from everything that changes, from all the chaotic thoughts, from all the changes around us, all the visual sensations we experience, and we recognize that still silent space within. That is the eternal and the infinite. That is not conditioned by the past. And we can really see that only through stillness can we perceive this change. And if there is some stillness, then that means there is something that is eternal. And there is something that will go on forever. When we go to sleep at night, we can dream that we're in an alien world, flying around with magical creatures all around. And we won't think that it is strange. We won't think anything unusual about it, and we will believe it is 100% our reality. And so it is no wonder that we get so invested into these illusory roles that we have in our lives. From our nationality, to our religion, to our race and gender, and job and role in the family, we can believe we're a lazy person, or a disciplined person, or a funny person, or a no-nonsense person. And we can believe that our conditioning, our past, controls us, and that we are not free to change any of those things, or to even free ourselves from every identity that other people have placed on us. And to consciously, with presence, with even effortlessness, allowing ourselves to be ourselves, to trust our instincts and intuitions, to not listen so much to our thoughts and our fears, which are based on our past experiences, but to be fully present, to be aware of that conditioning, and then choose to consciously create a new path forward. That is the key to liberation from our past, from our upbringing and everything that we've been taught about ourselves and that we've learned about the world from others. These are potentially important lessons, and we wouldn't want to obliterate our memory. We just don't need it to dictate our present and our future. So when these roles, which can make us feel overwhelmed, if we feel like our entire identity is this job, then we become crushed if we lose that job. If we feel called to change careers, we may have an identity crisis. And so it's important to recognize that we are all constantly changing. Our bodies are constantly changing, our brains are constantly changing, and we have the ability to make new habits, create a new mindset, to be ourselves, to fully be ourselves, to trust ourselves as much as everyone else is allowed to trust ourselves. Not second guessing, not doubting. Like every other person on earth, we can trust and express ourselves that when we are our true selves, we will find people who connect with the true self and not with who we wish we were or who we wish other people thought we were. And that is the true freedom, to let go of those labels other people put on us, to let go of those labels we put on ourselves, and to notice that insecure mind, that self-doubting, questioning, uncertain inner debate that we all have going on inside, and simply choosing that to believe that we have a higher wisdom within us and that a true self that is greater than uncertainty is lying within us. And the more we stop trusting that negative self-talk, then we can start to listen to our heart, which is where our true self comes from. What it is that we love so much about social connection is that it brings us out of our head, that we are not thinking about our own thoughts. We are no longer in that downward spiral of negative thinking, and we are pulled out of that as we let someone else's thought process come into our own. And when we don't have that, something we can all do is close our eyes and just watch. Watch what happens in the mind. Notice how that story of suffering, that story of I'm lonely, I wish I had more people around. Notice how the story is the suffering. It is the creator and it is the result of the suffering. It is the only place that suffering exists. If we close our eyes and look, we'll see that there are these negative thoughts, scary thoughts, maybe anxious thoughts. But physically, there is maybe a little nervous tension in the body, a little shaking, a little tightness. But these are common sensations that if we have a good mental story about, do not actually disturb us, as we may have it getting on a ride for a roller coaster. The mental story is the only thing that's different. We know we're safe. We know everything's okay. And the more that we can sense that there is this peace and happiness underneath that story of loneliness, If we can just see a split second here and there between our thoughts and notice that there is no suffering, there is no loneliness, we are going to tap into that true nature that we have within us, which is peace and happiness. And it is all ready inside every single one of us. We just have lost touch, because the more we think, the more we lose touch. The more we constantly are doing things, distracting ourselves, the more we don't recognize that it's there, and we keep looking everywhere else for it. And so while we are working towards changing our life, we can change our minds right now, and we can rise above that loneliness, and we can see that free time, that isolation even, as a gift. And we can use it to meditate, to tap into that peace and happiness, to face what we are fearing, and keep touching that source of peace within us, and keep becoming more and more familiar with it. And every day, just create more of that space to sit in. And over time, we'll realize that even though life may be lonely, it can be incredibly peaceful.